A picture tells 1,000 words. And I don't know why I just said that. Welcome one and all to the all-new ThyGap podcast episode. This is me being Brute, and with me is Tantri the Mantri.
Bogus Nog.
Bogus, how are you, my dear friend? How are you? Come on, tell me, how are you?
I'm doing good, bro.
Tell me again.
I think the reason why you said that at the start is because we're currently stuck in a dark room with no power.
No power.
And we're recording on batteries. So a picture is the last thing that we could possibly take in this situation.
Yes, I think you have read my deep subconscious mind space.
As I do, usually.
Yeah, but I would want you to do a lot more reading.
Mm-hmm.
In general, like read.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like read people or something, but simple reading, you know, like a pamphlet or newspaper, or read behind what's written on a shampoo box.
Mm-hmm. I'll work on that.
Yes, you better. But tell me what else is happening, Bogus. We are stuck with 3 days of rain in our dear own city.
Yeah.
After a long time.
Yeah.
So we can expect clogged roads.
Oh, yeah.
With water everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And mud.
And also roads breaking up in parts, you know, you suddenly
Two lanes becoming 4 lanes, 4 lanes becoming drainages. Yeah, I mean, it's a norm. Come on.
Yeah.
But, you know, this place, this season or this time reminds me of my favorite word in my mother tongue.
Which is?
Burda.
Right.
Burda is the beautiful, sweetest word. And I just miss using that word.
I can see why. But it is my least favorite time of the year, when not just monsoons are fine, but if it rains, you know, non-stop 24 hours and it's always wet.
So you don't like things wet?
No, I mean constant, like it's too much of one thing.
It's like too much of sugar is also not good.
Yeah. It's always wet, even though the wind is a bit chilly.
Yeah.
It's still humid. You know, and it's just damp.
Yeah.
And you just want some dryness. It's such a...
moist feeling. I'm sorry. I thought you were going for that.
ThyGap, subscribe. It's a moist feeling.
Share. Yeah.
But no, it's such a funny thing that a Hyderabadi is...
complaining.
Crying for some dryness. Yeah. You know, which is...
After like 4 months of it, actually, or in our case, it's almost like 6 months.
No, because this place is dry central. You know, all we have is dryness.
Yeah,
but it's just it gets too much for me sometimes.
Except for the humor, I think we don't have that dry humor.
Yeah, it's moist.
Everything else, it's moist. It's succulent. It's
juicy.
Yeah. But enough of the weather report.
Yes,
Bogus. Let's get down to business. Okay, and the reason why we are doing today's episode, let's get down to that.
Yes, okay? Let's do it.
So socials.
Yes.
Instagram.
That's the whole reason we are doing. The reason we record every episode is just to get more followers.
Just to say this 4 lines.
Yeah. The rest of it is filler.
Yeah. It's all like, you know, you can avoid that. Yeah. But socials, let's get through that. We've rehearsed this so many times.
Yep.
I think we rather like perform it also once in a while. So Instagram
is @_ThyGap.
Yep. Twitter
@ThyGap.
What is that? Facebook.
What is that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can also write to us if you are a professional corporate audience of us and is used to writing mails to your HR people. You can do the same with us, and you can do that by writing to us at
mindthygap@gmail.com.
.com was invented by another South Indian. But let's get down to the other part of the business, which is the filler part of the episode.
Yes.
Bogus, what did you do in your free time as a kid? Let's make it like a TVC ad.
Well, a lot of things.
Okay, so we are going to avoid the script that we've written.
Yes.
And let's just see if we can go organic, be improv. So let me be more specific. Imagine you're in a room, Bogus, alone, and you're about like 6 years old. You just got scolded by your father. Your mother is not helping you in supporting you. Your sister is obviously very happy that, you know, you got scolded. And you're alone in your room, just stuck with your what? Because I know you don't have thoughts at 6 years old, but what else are you stuck with?
Books.
Good. Very good answer. close to what we want to hear. But can you go a little more specific, give me some juice here.
Like maybe the question should be flipped to you because in my case, you're
boring.
No, the comics were
Well, that was amazing, by the way.
not really patronized. Like they were not supported in my childhood.
What do you mean comics are not supported?
Like,
they're not like an act.
I was rather provided books, than comics in my home.
At 6 years old?
Yeah, doesn't matter what age. Never.
Oh, are you talking about like school books, like subjects?
No.
Math book?
Oh, no.
Word power made easy?
No, more like
book.
general knowledge books, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess the question should be flipped to you. Brut, if you were 6 years old and you were punished in your room, what would you be doing?
First of all, Bogus, I want to tell you about my childhood.
Okay.
As a kid, I always was into a comic. I was a comic.
Finally.
Okay.
With a lot of pain and effort, we've brought the topic of the episode in the picture.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was a comic. I always wanted to become a comic.
Okay.
But I was too small to understand that the word comic also means something else.
Yeah.
When I realized that, I got into comic books.
Okay.
Right? And that's what I used to do. I used to read a lot of comic books. I was brought up among I had 4 siblings above me so I was passed on whatever books they had. Right. So ultimately I was just stuck with this plethora of books. See how I'm using complicated words.
Yeah.
Plethora of comic books ranging from, the local comic books to, the Tintins and Asterix and all. And we had nothing much to do because this was the same scenario back then. Back in the early 90s, 1 drop of rain and there was no power.
Yeah.
Right? So there was a lot of free time that I used to have, not being able to do a lot.
Right.
So I got into comics pretty early. Pretty early. I think by the time I was in my second grade or third grade, I don't know how old you are then, I was already into a lot of comics.
Okay. So when you say a lot,
volumes.
What kind? What did you start with?
The first comics I started with, surprisingly, was Archies. Because my mother used to read a lot of Archies.
Okay.
And she had this whole box of Archie books. So initially it was not about reading the lines, but it was checking the illustrations, right? Oh, this is what this guy is doing, and trying to make up your own story. I used to look at the boxes, see what they were doing in the box. And I basically used to make up my own story. This is what has happened.
So you didn't really understand.
I didn't even bother reading. Yeah. No dialogues. It's just, I'm writing the dialogues.
Great.
I was so creative and intelligent, even at such an innocent age.
Right. So basically you disregarded whatever creativity or quality was provided to you.
How did I disregard? I was following.
Replace that with your own substandard second grade understanding is what you're saying.
Yeah, and it was amazing. Everybody appreciated it in my head.
In your head, yes.
Yeah. But then slowly I obviously learned the language. So I started reading a lot of comics. So by the time I was in my 5th grade or something, I was already tagging along with my brothers to the library and renting out Tintins and Asterix and all those comic books, which were regarded as the higher level of comics back then.
Right.
So I started off from Archies, then I kind of graduated to Tinkle, and then Amar Chitra Katha, which were the books which we had at home.
Yeah.
And then I got exposed to Calvin and Hobbes, because once I've read all of them, now I was searching for where I can get this for cheap. And newspapers, Deccan Chronicle always had a lot of comics coming every day, right?
Right.
So I used to follow them. So Calvin and Hobbes was one. Though I didn't understand the jokes of them, but Dilbert was another, which I used to like reading because of the illustration, because they looked funny at least. Then Tarzan, I got introduced to Phantom and all those. And obviously, once I started tagging along with my brothers, it was Asterix and Tintin and all those.
Are you flipping the order because have all these comics come to you at the same time? You went from Dilbert's and Asterix, Tintin, and then you mentioned something like...
No, it started with Archies.
Okay.
You're not listening to me, Bogus. It started with Archies. Then because of the other comic we had, which were of my brothers and sisters' childhood, those Tinkle. So we used to bind all those individual comic books into one huge bundle.
Okay.
Okay. So I had like this 4 or 5 huge bundles of Tinkles binded together.
Okay.
And same was with Amar Chitra Katha. Like we had 2-3 bundles of Amar Chitra Katha, which was just binded together. Do you know what is binding? Did you ever get a binding done?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what we did. So once I exhausted them, right? I was a very fast reader, Bogus. So once I exhausted them, then I figured out that you get comics even in newspaper, which is how I ended up reading comics in newspapers. That is how I got Dilbert and all.
I mean, of course, you were a fast reader. You were making up the story yourself.
Yeah. No, not like all my life. It's not like I did it all my life. Like after that, you're not following my story at all. All that vulnerability, and I shared my deep secrets, and you're making
You
fun
said
of
it yourself.
Yeah. No, I said initially when I was reading Archies.
Uh-huh.
The first time when my mom tried to keep me busy with a comic book, I couldn't read. So I just used to follow the pictures and make up the stories. But as I grew and I figured out the language or reading English, then it was like pretty much reading everything. I used to even read those dumb ads that used to come in Archie's books. Like you would get like random ads of Nintendo and all those things. I used to read even all of them.
Right.
I was so, attention to detail guy.
Right.
As you can see in my speech.
Oh, I can see.
In my work of art.
Yeah. I can see as clear as this dark room we are in.
Yeah.
With no power. My first comic was Chacha Chaudhury. Back when I was a kid. So my parents did not really like buying us comics, yes, but I did flick some from my neighbors who used to live.
You're a thief.
I mean, I borrowed it from him. So I used to read it at his place. We used to live in the same duplex. They used to live underground and not underground, like cellar, ground floor. And
then
we were on top.
Come out onto the surface every once in 6 months.
So a lot of the pop culture influence was from neighbors or
the
friends.
Underground neighbors.
The underground neighbors. So Chacha Chaudhury, and even though we were a Telugu family, I was at that point of time in Haryana because my father's job took him there. So it was through Chacha Chaudhury and other stuff that Hindi became the first language that I actually learned. And I learned Telugu after that.
Oh.
And
so you were originally that cool guy who could not speak Telugu.
No, there was nothing cool about it.
Yeah, but, I mean like Haryana, but...
Yeah, it was just a happenstance thing, it just happened that way. Because of the comic books, I kind of picked up Hindi faster.
So you used to read Chacha Chaudhury in Hindi or
in
English?
Hindi? In Hindi.
Oh.
Yeah.
I never read a comic in local language.
Okay, then you missed out.
Missed out what?
You missed out on something.
Okay, explain.
It's just the expression is different, right? The way of expressing in, let's say, Indic languages.
Yeah.
It's different from how you express
I don't
English.
think I did because later on I saw all those as cartoons in Hindi.
No, cartoons, no.
Dubbed in very bad Hindi.
No.
Where adults were doing child voices and you could make it out.
Just like, a movie based on a book will never do the book justice, complete justice.
Yeah.
A cartoon based on a comic will never do the comic justice. It's just impossible, I feel. Yeah.
Okay.
Because
I think you're just rubbing some feathers of Marvel and DC fans.
I don't know. I mean, don't know, don't care. But because I never got into Marvel or DC comics. So I'm not sure.
That's because you're
applies.
middle class and we couldn't afford those.
It's not just that. I mean, back when I was a kid, those were not even a thing. Archies was the extent of Western comic material available.
Asterix was there. Tintin was there.
For me, Asterix and Tintin also came later. When I was a kid,
what?
It was Archies. That's it. Yeah.
Where did you go to buy these comics?
I never bought them.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Did you rent them?
No, like I said,
my
flicking
friends. It from people.
Yeah.
We used to actually go to those roadside bookstallers.
Right.
And the second-hand book guys. They, if you are lucky, then you would find a decent condition Archies or a Asterix or a Tintin, for dirt cheap.
Right.
So we used to go every Sunday on our cycles and go you need to go there as early as possible so that you still find majority of the lot. So we used to go and then we were given 5 rupees each. So whatever we could buy, we had to buy pulling in all that. So that is how we got our comics. We didn't bother buying. Like at that point, I don't think we had the thought of also to, that fascination of getting a fresh comic. Like with that
mint condition.
The mint condition comic. We didn't care. As long as we got a comic, we were happy.
Yeah, that's it.
So we bought a lot of stuff on second hand.
You bought. Because I remember a bunch of my friends, there was not even the concept of buying them. It was always renting them. There used to be these shops who used to rent video cassettes.
Yeah, that was there.
Yeah,
like I said, like Asterix and Tintin were hardly found.
Yeah.
So we would rent it out.
Yeah.
So with majority of the Tinkle comics and Archies, Chacha Chaudhury, Amar Chitra Katha, and Champak, all those local comic books, we somehow had that thing of collecting it. I think it came from my brother's side because they had their bundle and they used to stencil their name on that bundle.
Yeah.
Right? So we were like, okay, we also need our own bundle.
Yeah.
Where we can also stencil. So we used to sit and collect all through summer.
Yeah, because it's not something that you would just read once. Like you would go back
to
comics every now and then.
Yeah, comics are like a favorite food dish.
Yeah.
Whenever you feel low, you want to go back and make that Maggie or whatever is your favorite.
Yeah.
Go to, what do you call that? Soul food. I don't know what is it called.
Yeah.
But so comics for me is like that, right? At least I think back in the day. So you had a fight and you didn't have TV to watch or like you didn't have a mobile phone to play games.
Right.
So when you were grounded, the only thing you could do is like read books, like read comics mostly at the age of 10, 9 or whatever.
Yeah.
Or if you had a bad fight with your sibling, then, and you don't want to talk to anybody, you would go either paint or draw some nonsense, or you just would go read like a bunch of comics.
Right.
So comics was like our, rejuvenation thing.
Yeah, very well put. Rejuvenation thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, these comics were not something that you read once. You kept going back to them again and again.
Yeah.
Because it's like, that's why you would collect.
Yeah.
Especially if you're someone who does not pay attention to the dialogue and just makes up the story. Then pretty much every time you go back to it, you can make up a new story now. It's a new comic.
Is this point addressing me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Bogus 1.
Like, how do you
Brut.
not read the words? I just can't understand.
You are 6 years old. How much of language do you know? How much of English you spoke when you were 6 years old?
I was reading Hindi comics.
My question is, how much of English did you learn when you were reading when you were 6 years old?
Not much. I was not reading English
Exactly.
comics.
So same thing here. I couldn't read. I came from like a supremely local basti Waddar school where we started learning English in our 5th class.
Right. Local basti Waddar school who started off with Archies.
That's because of my mom. My mom was rich. We were not.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, for my mom, she picked it up because my grandparents at that point were in France. Mm-hmm. So my grandfather used to work in France. Mm. So he would get all these for my mother back in the day. Mm-hmm. That's how she collected all those.
Right. I can see how local basti we are.
Not you, me.
Yeah, that's what.
But my father was completely different. My father's concept of having fun is like running around our house. That's about it. Like whenever we used to be like, okay, let's play something. My father would take us on a scooter, like around our lane, and then bring us back home. And like, yeah, that was a lot of fun. Let's go eat and sleep. And we're like, oh, okay, adventure. Yeah, he had a name for it also. I'll tell it to you after we record.
Sure, yeah.
But what you obviously the posh kind who read
the posh kind who started off with Hindi comics.
Hindi comics.
Yeah.
In Haryana.
Yeah.
Even more
so posh. Yeah.
What was your favorite comic? Like, what was your go-to comic?
Like, I remember even when I was reading Chacha Chaudhury, right? That was the only thing. There was never a point where I felt like, oh, this is mind-blowing. It was like, okay, here and there is being clever, but pretty much the whole purpose of reading the comic was to wait for Sabu to go berserk.
Yeah.
That's it.
A volcano has busted on Jupiter.
In Jupiter, right. It's just for that dialogue. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, finally we've got here. Sabu's angry. He's going Hulk. And shit is flying off in Jupiter because this guy's angry now. Yeah. And that's all. That was the main purpose of reading that comic. There was nothing more to it. But it was in high school where I was in a boarding school, and I mentioned this in the previous episodes that everyone should listen to all of the ThyGap episodes because these are continuous.
There's so many connecting dots.
Yeah, there's,
like,
there's continuity.
there is multiversal, multi-episodal topics that we cover.
Exactly, and it's all connected.
Yeah.
So in high school, I was exposed to this massive archive library of comics and books and National Geographics, and that's where, of course, there were Tintins and Asterix. So before I got into,
school didn't have none of them.
Yeah, before I got into that school, I managed to read a Tintin book before I got in. So for me, I was like, Tintin, and everyone around me was telling me that no, you got to switch to Asterix because once you read this, you're not going to go back to that.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, that's
not happening.
I tried with Asterix, I opened it and I saw it. It just seemed too crazy for me. So I quietly put it back because they were pending Tintin books to finish.
Yeah.
And I just like the whole fact about this kid running around all over the world.
Yeah.
And the artwork was amazing. And there were funny situations. There were funny dialogues here and there. Characters were amazing.
It was almost like cinematic. Like,
yes,
Tintin
exactly.
is kind of pretty cinematic in nature.
Yeah, it is pretty cinematic actually. And I think that's what attracted me immediately to that.
The director in you spoke to you, like voiced out, like, this is your calling, Bogus. Read more of Tintin. You'll become a director one day.
No, more of, I think, just a movie lover, like watcher. That kind of, like you said, it is cinematic.
Yeah.
So immediately it was interesting. Also because the plots of some of the stories involved them going to the moon and going to the pyramids and going to all these exotic places, and then there's espionage, and then there's murder and suspense. There's so much.
The two things that I always got away from Tintin is obviously the words. The words that I've learned in Tintin are extremely usable words. Unlike Asterix, you would not come across a word which you can use on a day-to-day life, right? Yeah. The other thing about Tintin, which I always felt, was you can just pick up a book, somehow make it a reel, and it's the movie itself.
Yeah.
I never felt even how they illustrated each box, right? I think they are boxes. Panel. Each panel, right? They had the perfect view. I mean, for someone who was coming from Tinkle and
exactly.
comic strips, in the newspaper and all this, the moment you came across Tintin, you're like, dude, this is like, this supreme premium quality.
Over here, there's a wide shot, then there's a medium
there's
shot,
a close
then
shot,
there's a close up.
Yeah.
In Tintin, it was pretty much all uniform.
It was, and also I think it's also the quality of paper. Archie, Tinkle, and all have that rough, papery thing. I don't know how you put it.
Market recycled.
Yeah. But when it came to Tintin and Asterix also, for the matter of fact, the moment you felt that quality of paper, right, you're like, oh, I want to just keep feeling it. Like, it was the, I don't know if I'm going to use it right, but it was the children fetish. As a kid, you want to hold that kind of paper. Like, you like that quality.
And also, that was the first time that I came across them playing around with the panel sizes.
Yeah, it was never that symmetric.
It was never the same all the time. Sometimes when they had to emphasize things like scale, they used to, pretty much one entire page would just have 4 panels, because one panel would take up more than half the page or something.
Yeah.
And you just really got the scale of things, and you're like, whoa, you got that experience.
Yeah.
As if, when you go to the theater, right, and sitting in front of a 70mm screen.
Yeah.
That's the experience that you got. And one of the best things for me that I loved about Tintin was the expressiveness of characters. Like the captain guy.
Captain Cook. No,
Captain Haddock or something.
Haddock.
Yeah, blistering barnacles.
Yeah.
So that guy, I think he was the most expressive character in the entire series. When he's laughing mad, when he's drunk, or when he's simply going nuts, like he's flipping out because he's angry.
Yeah.
It just makes you laugh. Like they draw it with such precision, right? Yeah. It just, that drawing itself used to make me chuckle.
I think the beauty of, again, I might tilt more towards Asterix than Tintin.
No, I do tilt more towards Asterix because
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. Once I picked up Asterix, like my friends told me,
Yeah.
once I got the premise and what's going on in this world,
Yeah.
reading that, man, I was like, they were right, because this
Asterix
shit is next level.
Asterix makes you a man in the world of comics.
It used to make my tummy hurt, dude. Like how much I used to laugh just at one panel.
The thing about both of them, like I said again, a little more in Asterix, is how the tone would come out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like Cacophonics is singing badly. It is so difficult for you to decipher, or like for you to make the reader imagine a voice which is of bad singing through like an illustration. And they used to do it like amazingly.
Yeah.
It might be about how the other guys throw a fish at him, or the broken musical lyrics that come. Yeah. Whatever it might be, right? I think that's what made Asterix my favorite comic.
Yeah.
Because of how much it used to speak to me, more than me trying to like Archies, like, you know, make up my own story.
Yeah.
Or make up my own tones in the head, make up voices which are different. When I first saw the Asterix movie, I don't know if you have watched those Asterix
I
movies.
watched like, I think 15 to 20 minutes with great difficulty. I was like, no, this is not doing it.
But when I first saw the Asterix, movie, the voices were exactly how I imagined while reading the book.
Okay.
You know, Asterix would probably have a squeaky voice, and Getafix would have that old man's like gurky voice, and Obelix also would have like this dumb moose voice, right? Yeah. And every time I used to go through that voices always were consistent. It was never like I go to a new book and, maybe not. It was always like consistent. And the movie also kind of had the same exact, majority of the characters had the same kind of voice with the same delivery of dialogue or whatever. Which is when I was like, oh dude, I'm like so into it.
In my case, the only voice I found matching what I had imagined was Obelix.
Yeah.
Everyone else was off for me. And that was another reason why I didn't like the movies. The other reason for me, which was the biggest reason, the main reason of all, is because in Asterix, not just the artwork, not just the, expressions or the characters, it's also the dialogues. The dialogues had a rhythm to them.
Yeah.
In Asterix. They were almost composed sometimes so that they rhymed.
Right.
And that made it so much more funny for me.
Especially the names.
The names, and they use so many tricks to make the words rhyme, or just the placement of the right word at the right spot.
Right.
It just killed it for me,
The other thing about Asterix, which I like the most, I think it's probably one of the few comics out there, with very few other exceptions, where they always broke the fourth wall. Mm-hmm. What I mean by that is Asterix was set in 1500 BC or some shit like that, right? Yeah. But every now and then you would see a new age technology being as if it was existent. Yeah. Right? Yeah. That always made me really, really laugh hard. Because the thinking, right? I mean, Asterix in itself is pretty old. It's not something that was done in 80s or 90s. Yeah. So it was pretty old by that time when they were making, or when they were first initially working on the idea. So for them to think that, doesn't matter, let's put all the new things. Let's put a car, let's put a telephone, random things. And that always made me feel like, oh, you know what, if only they were alive, if only they were real characters. It almost had that Sherlock kind of an effect on me, where I wish they were really living in some European mountains or beyond them. Right. And you can go meet them if you have a chance type.
Right. I mean, the work was of such high quality that I never went to the extent of imagining this to be real. For me, in the book, it was real. It was it was so well done, right? Yeah. I was like, this exists over here. It's so good. And the other, of course, entertaining part was how the Romans used to just lose their shit, not knowing how to deal with this Gauls. Yeah. It was so funny. And from there, I guess there was a gap in the middle of reading, comics. And then...
When did you stop reading comics?
After high school.
Oh, after high school.
Yeah. So after high school, I came out of the boarding school. And once I got back out, I never really got into the habit of buying comics for myself because it was never there in the first place. So it was just this so much talk that was never dying down about this graphic novel called Watchmen. That then I figured just the amount of cult fandom it had. And it was not really a comic also. It was a graphic novel.
Watchmen is American...
British. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, Alan Moore, the guy who wrote it, he's a Brit.
Got it.
So, and he's also the same guy who wrote V for Vendetta and, So, and of course, Watchmen, I was in Inter, like 11th, 12th. And
a very delicate age to read Watchmen.
Very delicate age.
Cautionary warning.
Well, I think it's the best age, actually, to get into that.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I have a two-pronged question here. Best age for reading that, why? Like, one is, I mean, I don't know if in your 11th and 12th grade, if you have the aptitude to understand, Watchmen. Second thing is, it is supremely volatile.
So,
do you think so?
No. So, I mean, it is. But the thing about Watchmen is, it is a multi-layered piece of work. There's many layers to it.
It is the Dostoevsky's work of comics.
Not really. I mean, it's not that deep, but it is.
I'll just like beef it up.
No, it's as far as comics and graphic novels go, it's pretty out there. So, especially when you read it at that age, right? So, at that age, when you pick it up, chances are that even though most things might go over your head, for example, like I said, multi-layered, which were intentionally done, at the very least, you can't ignore the artwork, which is...
So you're doing exactly what I did
of a next
Archies.
level. But then also, you will understand the story, at least what's going on, and what in this world, and
by
what
looking
these
at the pictures.
Characters are talking about, and where are they coming from. So the reason I say it's good for that age is because the subject matter actually forces you to confront some ethical dilemmas or conundrums. Or you can say paradoxical things that as you become more of an adult, right, you tend to understand that, there's no easy answers. It's not easy.
It's not. #it's not easy.
To many things. And this is where, it's a gray area more than it is black and white. And so I think it's a really good thing to force someone that young to confront. And then when you get past that, right, if you were to get older and come back to it, you would know that there's more things going on under the surface. And so back to my 11th or 12th, when I was reading it, when I planned to read it, it was not available. Like there was no e-commerce. So again, I had to go online and I had to download these scanned PDF pages, basically, and read it off a monitor. But my God, that thing, it just spun my head at that age when I read it. It was so good. It's no surprise that it's considered to be among the top 100 literary works of all time. Literary works. It's the only graphic novel that has made to that category.
Somebody in the panel didn't read Asterix. Anywho. But no, I think I did hear about Watchmen a lot.
Yeah.
Especially from a couple of my cousins and later from you a lot.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't get to that because there was a mixed review about Watchmen. And at that point, at that point where, my cousins would come from US and they would bring this random comics which they feel like Calvin and Hobbes was. I only thought that, there were just newspaper clips.
Yeah.
But then I realized that there's a whole fucking book about it.
Yeah.
And all those things, right? I was getting exposed to one after the other. And they were telling me about this book, but they always were like, you better wait for some time for you to get into Watchmen. It's too early for you. And I think I'm on the same age, like probably 10th. I stopped following comics or going up behind comics around 8th grade, which is when by 6th I was already into Enid Blyton, Secret 7, Famous 5 and all that. So by 8th grade, I almost upgraded to some decently big novels. But I would never shun a comic book. Like I would not be racist about it.
Yeah.
If I would get my hands on a comic, I would rather like read it. And because, as you start reading novels, your reading tempo increases, right? So you could finish off a comic in like 10, 15 minutes. So it was like good respite. So, but yeah, with respect to Watchmen, I had like very mixed reviews. Some of them were like, dude, this is path-breaking. This is like really cool. It's very intelligent writing, blah, blah, blah. The other side was like, oh, you're too young to read this. Like, you should wait for some time because otherwise you will miss out on the real juice. Like, the layered thing that you're talking about. You would not understand the background of what the comic is about, blah, blah, blah.
The layered part is not really as much as as much about the background or the world. So it's unfortunate that you were given that advice because I don't think you should have waited. Like that was a perfect age to pick something like that up.
But would you suggest that for if you had to suggest Watchmen, what age group would you suggest that for?
Yeah, like 10th onwards.
10th class.
Yeah, 10th upwards, I guess. Because even if see, the thing is, if let's say by 10th standard, a kid is well read or has the aptitude for reading, then they will appreciate it on a whole different level. But even if there's a kid who's not that well read, right? The artwork is so amazing that it's going to keep them stuck to it. They may not understand the concepts.
How different is the artwork? Okay, so my question is this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I'm butting in. If a kid is not well read or is not too into comics, like he's on and off or in reading as a habit itself.
Yeah.
Then artwork, an Asterix artwork or like a Tintin artwork or any of this artwork would be as exciting as a Watchmen artwork. What makes you say that Watchmen artwork might take him by surprise and actually get him excited?
Because like Asterix or Tintin, Watchmen is also cinematic. I would say it is more cinematic.
Okay.
It is actually like watching a movie.
Right.
Which is stuck in frames.
Right.
And it's also bleak. It is not trying to put a smile on your face. It is not trying to do anything. It's just being itself. And you find yourself being sucked into it. So
how will something...
See, wait. Let me finish. You're asking questions because you're not letting me finish.
Okay.
My whole point is, even if this kid is not well read, just the extreme experience of coming across something that is so different from what they ever knew or could comprehend, that would itself be a breaking of cherry of sorts in their head. There is no going back from that. Like it will stick in their minds long enough that even if they put it off, like there are 12 chapters, small chapters, but there are 12. Even if they put it off after one, they are bound to come back to it after a few years to see, okay, what the hell was that all about? Because it's just going to grab your curiosity, And that I feel like is definitely the best I've read. And when I say multi-layered, it's not just in terms of the storyline or the characters or the dialogues, all that is there. But it is layered in the way that the panels are arranged from chapter 1 to chapter 12. The whole bloody thing is connected. Like the panels in chapter 1 are somehow connected to panels in chapter 12. And if I say any more than that, it would be spoiling it. So it's like, even if you're an adult and you're not a kid, right? If you read through Watchmen, you may not actually make that connection until unless it's pointed out to you. Did you, by the way, notice that this first page of chapter 1 and the last page of chapter 12, do you notice anything off? Like, do you notice anything that is connecting these two? Like, only if you are led to that, right? Then you would begin to see, oh shit, there's something else going on here. So it's not just the linear story, but it is non-linear as well in terms of how it is telling you the story of this world. So it was very deliberately done by Alan Moore because when he wrote this, right, he was sick of the whole DC Marvel Superman world where these superheroes were so like cookie cutter, as they call it. Like, these are good boys. They'll just come solve the problem and go.
Yeah.
But Alan Moore was like, what do they do after they solve the crime? What do they do after?
They do push-ups, like One Punch Man.
Because, there's so much fame and there's so much validation from people.
Yeah.
Ultimately, these people have to go back home And
what do they do once they are home?
What do they do once they're home?
They wear specs and disguise themselves, like majority of them.
So that one question led him down this road of, seeing what, if you realistically looked at superheroes, what would it actually be? And then you see how cynical like it can get, how real world and how jaded it can get. And man, that book is really something.
Yeah. I mean, I get the point. Like I get where you're coming from, or how Watchmen is perceived. So I don't have any comments on that. I am sure you're waiting for me to like give my explanation.
Yeah, like I just wanted to add that, the other thing that I forgot to mention was when he wrote this book, right, with Dave Gibbons, the artist, there was a very clear intention that this should never be filmed, because he hated that, how films used to butcher the source material.
Right.
And he hates how V for Vendetta was made, the movie, compared to his graphic novel.
Yeah.
And he hated how that used to go on. So he was like, let's make a piece of work that can never be filmed. It should be unfilmable. And this Watchmen...
But Watchmen was a web series?
No, it was a movie.
It was a movie?
Yeah.
It did come out as a movie?
So for many, many years, Hollywood was trying to make it a movie.
Okay.
And somehow they were failing. It was always failing. Then ultimately, the biggest hype that it got was when Terry Gilliam from Monty Python, he was brought on as the director to direct Watchmen.
Okay.
And Terry Gilliam is, of course, the only American part of Monty Python, but he lives in England ever since then. So when that news came out, Alan Moore got in touch with Terry Gilliam.
Yeah.
And he explained to him that this is not really filmable. Yeah. I don't think you should take it up.
Yeah.
And so Terry Gilliam, once they had that meeting, then he came back and said, yeah, I'm out. I'm not going to make this. That was a huge surprise, and credit to Terry Gilliam for that. But Hollywood still did not give up, because there was obviously a lot of money to be made, because it is different from DC, it is different from Marvel. Yeah. And all these superheroes are making so much money. Yeah. So they can't really let it go. DC owned it, basically. So they ultimately decided to make it, and some people even now they say they really like Watchmen because of the way it was made and all that stuff. It was made by Zack Snyder, the director, who is basically the slow-mo Pawn King. Yeah. Everything is slow motion. Yeah. Like 300, Watchmen, I'm drinking a glass of water, fucking slow motion. It's like there's no context for slow motion. It's like every fucking thing is slow motion. So I didn't really like that movie, and it didn't come anywhere close to like doing justice to the graphic novel.
I haven't watched the movie. I haven't read the novel yet, because after how you put it across to me, I wanted to read it in one go, and I'm just not been getting time because I'm a very busy guy. But
it's been I think more than a year or couple of years that I've gifted it to you.
Yeah. Brut. And you can see every time you come to my place,
it's just gathering dust.
How precious gathering! I'll punch you in the face. It is kept in such a precious place, where you can watch it every single time you come, as to how neatly and safely it has been kept.
Yeah, it's like an NGO for termites. Like, come eat this if you're hungry.
No, Bogus, don't portray me as a guy who is nesting insects. Okay, no termites survive in my house. There is no termites. Okay. Secondly, I'm not going to digress like you. Okay, I'll stick to the point. The slow-mo thing that you mentioned, right? Which kind of ticked a point in my head. The beauty about comics, and it can be any comics, right? The beauty about them is you can decide the tempo of the story.
Exactly.
Which is like a beautiful thing. I don't think you can do it in a book also. Like even in a novel, you really can't do that. No. Because novels are sometimes too complicated, sometimes too simple. So they have their own way of, they take you along, basically. Yeah. But with a comic, you can decide the tempo. You can make a comic, run fast or slow, depending on how you want it to go.
You're the editor.
Yeah, you are the editor, right? The reel is in your head. Yeah. So I think that's the beauty. That's the thing about comics which makes it unique in its own self.
As a medium, that's what makes it really unique. Yeah. It forces you, it's not even forces you, but you can stay with the picture. Like you said, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So
now you know why I said it.
in a movie, like the scene, you could really like a scene and it could go off. Like in Dark Knight, for example, the one shot of Heath Ledger sticking his head out of a cop car and, just taking in the rain or something. The breeze, that was my favorite shot in the whole movie. Yeah. And when I saw that, I was like, stay. I want to see more of that. And it just came and it went.
I know. And also it is the other parallel to that experience is, when in a song, there is a beat or there's one piece of music which you want it to continue in the song.
Yeah.
But then it like goes up and you're like, dude, that was the best part of the song. Like let it continue all through.
Yeah, just make a loop of that.
Yeah, just make a loop of that. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
So with comics, you can actually do that.
You can actually do that. You have so much control.
Yeah.
It's so customer friendly.
Yeah.
In that way.
It's so user driven.
And especially with Watchmen, right? Like when you see the artwork, it's a bleak city, like it's New York, bleak New York. It is raining, it is dystopian, it is damp, and you can almost
it's Godzilla.
You can almost feel the rain. You can almost smell the stench that they're describing, and it's so good. Like it comes through.
Which is why I was a little curious as to when you said that, people will be taken aback, or that whole illustration will stick to you.
The shock and awe effect. Yeah.
I was like, it's so dark.
Yeah.
Like Watchmen is, and like how will 11th grader or 12th grader or 10th grader get excited about it? Because they're used to color. They're used to it is happy-go-lucky kind of thing.
Yeah.
No, I know it is color, but it is kind of still pretty dark, right? It's not your conventional comic illustration. Like it's not like an Asterix. It's not like a Tintin.
Yeah.
Where there's so much of culture coming out of it, and like you said, right? There's space. There's pyramids.
Yeah.
There is some sense of reality.
So it's that sense of adventure and excitement and all that. Whereas Watchmen is so close to reality. It is bleak.
It's bleak. It
is cynical and it is dark.
And that is where I'm a little confused.
What I'm saying is some kids may be attracted to it because it's just different from what they've been fed all this long. Some other kids, even if they're not attracted, even if they're repulsed by it, it has that shock and awe effect, right? It forces the expansion of their mental, or limits of their imagination in their mind. It forces it in such a way that...
Swabhiman for that.
No. Once it does that, right? Yeah. There's no coming back. It's done.
But does that ruin Asterix for you?
Watchmen?
Yeah, I mean, once you break that barrier and start appreciating that, oh, you know what? This is more realistic.
If you're immature, then because some people tend to go down that path, which is... Oh, I only like serious stuff. I don't like funny
now
shit.
I'm intelligent. This is exactly what we covered in Christopher Nolan episode, right?
Yeah.
There are few people, and which is what is generally my worry. And, and I have this theory that majority are going that line. Where once you're exposed to a certain thing, right? Suddenly there is this, oh, I'm so smart.
Yeah.
Oh, you read Tinkle. I read Watchmen. Oh, you watch Welcome movie and Rohit Shetty movies. I watch Christopher Nolan's. Right? The moment that bifurcation or that differentiation comes, there is a tendency which you can't avoid.
Yeah.
Where they don't appreciate the simpler things.
Yeah.
The more on the face kind of a thing.
Yeah, it is unavoidable, like you said, but also at that age, right? 11th, 12th. So, those formative years, right? That entire age group. I think they should be given some buffer because everyone goes through that. And that's where you initially start out by thinking, oh, you're the shit. And once you keep growing up and you come across...
Oh, I'm not the shit.
Better... Yeah. Oh, I'm not? I'm not special?
Yeah, I'm not the shit?
So...
Oh, see, Jesus.
I think that age group should be given that much buffer, to go through that for themselves. It's fine, and it's fair enough.
Did you get anything out of comics? I know you got a lot from Watchmen.
Yeah.
You bored me to death with that.
Yeah.
But in general, right? The reason why I'm asking is when you watch a TV series or when you consume any amount of content, you get influenced.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And comic as a medium, like we just discussed, is a very unique medium.
Yes.
Right? It just doesn't entertain you, but it almost like helps you entertain yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Other mediums don't do that.
Yeah.
They either make you think or they make you repel to it, or you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So did you ever look back and say like, oh, this is because I read these comics?
Yeah, I think now what I can recall is more from these graphic novels like Watchmen or V from Vendetta, or there's another graphic novel that Alan Moore wrote called From Hell, which is more than like 150 pages or whatever. And it is completely black and white. And it is set in Victorian era England. And it's based on Jack the Ripper.
Oh.
Jack the Ripper, you actually follow Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
Going out, doing his skills.
Yeah.
You are inside his head, you know, and what he's thinking. And it gets a little intense. You know, it gets real intense. And there's no color to give you that relief.
Now you're scaring me.
It is very bleak. And it was deliberate again. I didn't find it to be a very easy read, but it's worth it for sure. So like you said, like what do you take away, right? Like has there anything that you...
It kind of got you. Like eventually, I'll give you my example. I think it's easier to explain with my example. When I read Asterix, right?
Yeah.
Now when I look at all the gibberish that I talk, you know, as say a comic relief or whatever it is, I kind of start realizing that I'm using names of Asterix.
Okay.
You know, and which is a recurring piece in Asterix is the Romans getting concussions and then they're hallucinating after they get punched by Asterix and Obelix, right? So the dialogues of these, you know, delusional Romans is random. Like for some people there is a bird flying around or there are stars coming around their head and all that, right? So for me, Asterix in a way kind of made me fill the silence with gibberish. You know, that's how if I look back, my source of getting that idea of speaking gibberish was from Asterix. Same way, my whole fascination for burgers was because of Jughead.
Right.
Just for the fact of how many burgers he ate and how he ate it.
Yeah.
Right? Though it is just a comic. I think as a kid, like Jughead's character kind of made me love burgers even till today. Right? And I picturize the perfect burger where there's a good patty, not much of sauce, like there's a lettuce and all that. The other thing, which is kind of like now when I look back about Archies, like you realize how sexual Archies is and how, you know, sexist Archies is. It's just the perfection of women.
Yeah.
You know? And I think you can see that even in Asterix. In Asterix, the majority of the women who come have that, you know, what do you call that? Hourglass figure or hourglass figure?
I don't think so. Like, because in Asterix, there were these wives in the village.
No, though Gauls are different. But if you see Romans, how they depict Cleopatra and her servants.
Well, yeah.
Like majority of women who come, right?
Yeah.
They all have that, like, you just can't but observe that how are these women so, like, you know, perfect.
Yeah, but it is Cleopatra, so there was good reason.
Not just Cleopatra, but Veronica, Betty, like...
Yeah, Archies for
Archies.
sure. Veronica and Betty, yeah, for sure.
The whole Archies, this thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then you're also reading Tinkle once in a while. And you're like, this is not how women are. They're not, I mean... So because you need to understand, at that age, because you really don't know how people are in America.
Yeah.
Or foreign countries, you're assuming that, oh, this is how they are.
Yeah.
Because in Tinkle, they're depicting Indian woman as Indian woman.
Yeah.
Like with the sari, and the mother is all like, you know, typical with a hair bun and big botu and all that. So that was another cultural shock for
a slight difference in Amar Chitra Katha, right? Because in Amar Chitra Katha, they were beautiful women, almost like Raja Ravi Verma kind of women.
Yeah. And Amar Chitra Katha,
not sexualized.
No.
But just beautiful.
It's depiction, right?
But just beautiful, yeah.
And that's what kind of made them, I think, Amar Chitra Katha always wrote like mythology stuff.
Yeah,
right?
mostly.
It was not like fictional, this thing. So it was like self-explanatory. Because you keep hearing that, oh, Draupadi is the most beautiful woman across like Ayodhya and all.
Yeah.
So like, obviously has to be so pretty, and this is pretty.
Yeah.
Right? This is beauty.
Yeah.
But the rest of them are everything is fiction, right? So you're like, is this how women are? I mean, I don't know. I literally used to go to school and I used to like kind of check out my class girls and like none of them are like Betty. Like what's wrong?
No
with
way
them?
in hell.
No way.
Yeah.
I went to a predominantly Brahmin society school.
Yeah.
So you can imagine oiled hair and like.
Yeah, I mean, that happens. Like when you see Betty and Veronica and you look around, it's like, why is nobody else like this?
Yeah.
Like
One of them. Like,
one at least.
And if you look at Riverdale High School, every woman is like that. Right?
Well, not Ethel, I guess.
I mean,
apart
the 5% error percentage,
Yeah.
is acceptable.
Yeah.
But everyone, right?
Yeah,
So that
pretty
is
much.
like, that is how I asked, like, what is it that stuck to you even after you grew up?
Right. What stuck to me was because of the advantage of the medium where you're the editor
Yeah.
and these panels are frozen in time. My first read through would be pure reaction. Like I'm either with the story, I'm feeling the tension, or I'm laughing my ass out. But then I again come back and see, why did I laugh this much? Like what exactly made me
it
laugh
fun. Yeah.
in this particular panel? Was it the exaggerated expression of the characters, or was it the words? And then that helped me to actually take stock of what exactly was it that, got my reaction out in that way. And similarly with graphic novels, right? Some panels, they just have that effect.
Yeah.
Like it just has
Scarring effect. Like, it
scarring,
just gets stuck.
or it just gets stuck and it
Yeah.
has that internal like boom,
Yeah.
like mic drop. And it's not just because of where the story is or the plot point, it's also the way it was rendered on the page. So I always go back and see what is it about this panel that makes me just pause and look at it for a while. And that helps me understand so many things, like why did they choose to give this perspective in this part? Like in Watchmen, right, there's a guy, Dr. Manhattan,
Who's the villain?
he's not a villain.
Or he's one of the villains.
No, he's not.
He's one of the Watchmen. Let me guess.
Yeah, he's one of the Watchmen.
Yeah.
But he's the actual guy with the superpowers. Okay? So this guy, before he got into an accident that made him Dr. Manhattan, he actually was a watchmaker's son. So it starts with that. Like it shows with his childhood how he always had a fascination for clockwork because his father was working with
Right.
watches.
Nepotism.
And so he was also interested in the functioning of time.
Yeah.
And once he becomes Dr. Manhattan, right, like his superpowers go to such an extent that he can be anywhere at any time. He can replicate himself. So his understanding of time, right, the way it is shown in the book, it actually helps a layman to understand what Sanatan Dharma tries to
Talks
explain about
Yeah.
how time functions.
Right.
Like it's not really a linear thing. It could be like a ball through which
Multi-dimensional.
you're traveling.
Yeah.
So time is all existent at all times. It's all there. You're the one who's going from page 1 to page
Right.
200. But time is not actually moving.
Right.
So that kind of comprehension you get, and it's easy because it's in pictures, and because I don't want to spoil it. Again, just the way that the time, you see the progress of time or his understanding of time.
Right.
Through his perspective, you get a better understanding of what time could actually be. And that was amazing for them to be able to explain that just through pictures and through a character. That's amazing.
So you also became spiritual through Watchmen.
No.
It's fascinating.
No.
It is you're going to embark a journey of becoming the next spiritual guru, where you would I think your religion's, what do you call, holy grail would be Watchmen.
Hey, if I can have an estate of like 1,000 crores, I'm not complaining. I'll take it. Yeah.
Yeah. Hope we go to that stage soon.
Yeah,
Okay.
why not? Yeah.
But it's a good thing. I think comics is good. I would definitely suggest people to, I would say, like, pick up any comic. It is the best and fastest way of making reading a habit. You know what I mean? Like, the compulsion to go to the next page is easier in a comic when compared to like a proper novel.
Yeah. And not just that, I feel that, I mean, if there's anyone who does not really have a visual way of thinking,
Oh, yeah.
it could really help increase that
Visualization.
visualization aspect.
Yeah.
It could help boost that imagination
Yeah.
in their minds.
Yeah.
And it's also a very different way of experiencing, art that you can't get anywhere else. Like watching a movie is its own thing.
Yeah.
Reading a book with just words, it's its own thing.
Right.
So definitely if you're not consuming comics or graphic novels, you are missing out on one aspect.
Yeah, a major chunk of personality development. See how we took a simple concept like comics and made it to a personal issue for a lot of us. Because that is what it is. Because now when I look at comics, right? Like now, I mean, like any other book, for me, comics is my getaway. Comics takes me back to that 5-year-old kid where whenever I read comics, it kind of brings all those things which kind of I used to do, all that effort I used to put into to sneak in a comic or like steal one from my sister or my cousins, like from my brothers and all. And that excitement that I used to get in finishing off a comic or reading through a comic. So there's a whole downpour of emotions for me, which is why I still try to maintain to have like a collection of Archies and have a collection of Tinkle. My wife gifted me the whole 72 collections of the Asterix, which is like one of my most prized possession. So right now, even today, comics are still helping me to be sane, if I have to put it that way.
It sounds like a midlife crisis, but whatever floats your boat.
Bogus, once again, I don't have a boat. Okay, this floating business and all. Just
you see how much is raining all these
outside.
You might as well get one.
You are the one who has to travel, so you might be floating like anytime in the night today. So don't try to pull these fast ones on me. Okay, I'll punch you in the face next time. You already spit in my eye, by the way. But do you have that moments? Do you have those moments where you feel like, oh, I just wish I can like chill and read a comic?
No.
But you don't collect comics also, right? So
never collected them.
Yeah.
And no, I don't have that thing of let me read a comic so I can remember what it was like when I was a kid.
No, it's not like what I remember as a kid or not like that. I'm saying it is like for me that is like rejuvenation thing. You know, it rejuvenates me. You obviously don't need rejuvenation because you hardly do any mental activity. So you're never tired. You're the moose of Archies. Minus the pretty girlfriend. I know. Right. I know how you try to twist it into like it's a positive thing. I have a hot girlfriend. No, you don't. But anyways, that was comics as a topic. Of this episode, where Bogus has given us a very thorough understanding of he's not a comic reader. And whereas I enlightened you as with knowledge and pearls of wisdom where you can read comics and become a better person. Yeah.
Basically, arrested development is what Brut is recommending. Keep being stuck as a 5-year-old.
Which is the best thing.
Refuse to grow up.
Bogus,
that should really help you.
How I started the episode with a pearl of wisdom. I'll also end the episode with a pearl of wisdom. Ignorance is bliss.
It is.
Hence, you're better off stuck as a 5-year-old than like to grow and become very complicated and take responsibility in life. It's no fun. Okay? So you need to make your own path of being stuck in time. I have controlled time. I'm Dr. Manhattan. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the conclusion of our episode.
Yeah, write to us at mindthygap@gmail.com. Tell us about your experiences with comics or graphic novels if you've read those as well. And leave out any of the Marvel DC bullshit. Don't really care about that.
No.
I think you have enough people
I just
to talk
realized
about.
We didn't even touch upon two giants of comic industry.
I know.
But we don't need that. Comic-Con has doing enough promotion for them.
Yeah, you've got enough people to talk about that with. So ignore, you just write in to tell us hi.
Yeah.
That's it. Don't mention anything else.
We'll get you at hi.
Yeah, you'll have us at hi.
Yeah.
No Marvel, no DC bullshit. Thank you. As always, at the end of every episode, Brut, what do we say?
We say, ThyGap, subscribe,
and share.
Okay. You're not going anywhere without, following us on our socials. Instagram at underscore ThyGap, Twitter at ThyGap, and Facebook ThyGap it is. Or why not write email to us, mindthygap at gmail.com. For other people who only use Apple, you can also give us a rating and leave a comment on our ThyGap podcast. Because you know what all doctors say, ThyGap podcast. Subscribe and share.